We have Mark Madrid with us today. And Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to introduce yourself and why you have the background and the ability. But before we get into that, let's get into the personal. Who's Mark Madrid?
Well, I appreciate that. I would say I have white collar experience and blue collar DNA. I'm just a kid raised on the farm, grounded in these boots. I grew up in the Texas Panhandle with surrounding communities like Farwell, Lasbuddy, Bovina, Hereford, Tulia. That's where I grew up. I grew up with small town values and integrity, but it was tough. My parents, mom and dad, they hoed cotton because they were migrant farm workers, U.S. citizens, but that's where the jobs were. And then my dad was industrious and resourceful. God rest his soul. He built a welding business from the ground up. So I had that blue collar DNA. And I went on. They were not from an academia background. They graduated the fourth grade and the seventh grade, respectively. But they gave me a lot of grit. In Spanish, we call it ganas. And so through that, I was able to journey to the University of Texas at Austin, start my career on Wall Street, 94, and went through and almost realized my childhood dream in 2007, not to be president of the United States, but to be president of a bank. I was president in waiting, and then the Great Recession happened. And so that was a tough experience. I was the last one walking out of the building, handing the key to the landlord. Some folks got severances, most didn't. So I have that scar, but it reminds me to stay grounded, and when you get knocked down, to get back up again and to never give up. So then I started the most important part of my professional career, small business economic development. I started at the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So it was a vault into the nonprofit world. And my ex-boss, CEO, she said, this is the nonprofit sector. We don't care where you've been before. So if you want to work with us, you're going to have to start at the bottom. I said, no problem. So I was selling small business memberships, sharing a cubicle after all that experience. But you know what? I found my why. Visiting the small businesses on the ground was absolutely incredible experience. I related to them, being from a small business. I started asking questions. Why do you have that caution tape around your bathroom? Do you own this building? Are you leasing? Why did you tape over that menu item? How are your prices doing? I see you doing the cooking and the cash register. So that just led to me to be more empathetic and then bring my business mind, servant heart, business mind, greater impact to the game. Well, I ended up being promoted 5 times there to CEO in waiting. So this is a consistent chapter. And then I graduated to CEO and led a Chamber of Commerce in Austin, Texas. Then I led a national nonprofit at Stanford Graduate School of Business in Palo Alto, focusing on scaling Latino and Latina firms across the United States and Puerto Rico. And then the ultimate thing happened. I realized as a child, I'd always wanted to serve the American public. I had a chance to do so when I was appointed as a head official of the Small Business Administration from 21 to 24. And under the purview of my office, we supported millions of small businesses. So really, this has been a dream come true, but the line has not been linear. There's been a lot of overcoming adversity, staying grounded in these boots. And I'm super, excited to be now a business owner myself. So I'm following all the prescriptions I gave on the road. I traveled 37 states out of 40 months there. And so here I am, 1 year. I started my business, Breakthrough Mavens, LLC. Have a lot in common with you, fellow Hero Club member, because this is a fractional C-suite services firm. It's powered by AI, but it still has that blue collar, human intelligence driving the operation. So it's an honor to be here with you. And I certainly enjoyed seeing you last week in Dallas.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversations and opportunities. Now, I wanted to know, did you have to come over in a rowboat from that little island south of Florida?
Well, any mode of transportation to get me from point A to point B, I'm going to consider. And I'll do everything that I can to be even more efficient than that.
Well, rumor has it that you were born in Cuba and you came over to get into the world that we live in, and now Lord bless you, and he has. So
maybe that's a little bit of misinformation because I was born in Lubbock, Texas, in the South Plains.
I know. Somebody told me at the meeting you came over from Cuba, and I'm going, okay, now how does Cuba get involved in Lubbock?
Record straight.
But all right, that's good. All right, let's do a lightning round Madrid style. What's your favorite movie character?
Favorite movie character would have to be John Travolta. Yeah, in Saturday Night Fever.
I was going to say, do you do the dance? Is that what you're saying?
But that would be another separate, podcast.
All right. What's your go-to karaoke song, man?
My goodness, it would be "Ain't No Stopping Us Now."
Mine comes down to something like, let's sing a little song, do a little dance, let's get down
I could go
tonight.
for that
I
too.
kind of love
But I
that
really,
one. All right, your most used emoji in your text.
that would be a torpedo.
Okay, now share. Why?
Yeah, because we're going up, up, and up. I mean, staying grounded, but our acceleration is limitless. And after 32 years of been there, done that, having a huge heart that is unequivocal, now it's about being strategic, leveraging technology, and valuing people. And so I think with all the noise, wherever you fall on the spectrum of the noise, whether it's out there in the world, in the news, with personal relationships, with family, if you really focus on self-fueling excellence, which is the concept that I've copyrighted, then you can, I mean, your road is differentiated already just from that principle. So that's why I use the torpedo all the time.
Well, yeah, no, and also setting the record straight, you do know a torpedo is usually dropped or underwater. It doesn't.
I know, but
necessarily-
this emoji inventor has it pointed up in the direction. So yeah, it eventually comes down.
It might be a
It might
rocket
be, yeah,
too.
it might be a
All
rocket.
right. Well, with our subject today is where small business meets big vision. So let's kind of get in there. When you're scaling, are you scaling smart or scaling startled? When they try to scale, what's the biggest mistake they make? Hypergrowth or hyperventilation?
Well, there could be a little bit of both there. And so I think it's important to stay grounded and have a clarity of vision and value. I mean, that sounds so kind of cliche, but really you got to understand your why and you've got to organize yourself appropriately, whether it's legal support, accounting support, and know your banker before you need the money. So all those things have to be in place. And in terms of the hyper growth, that's a great question because I've experienced and advised companies who have been in that mode. I think the most difficult thing sometimes is like, we've waited for this moment. This is our baby. Everything's aligned for us to take it to the North Star. Sometimes I don't like the North Star because sometimes it's so inaccessible. So I'm saying, let's build some North Stars that are more grounded, that are achievable. So you really have to have that plan in place beyond the aspiration and everything coming together seemingly at the right place at the right time. So those are some keys that I would point out there.
Well, and as we talked about last week, hypergrowth brings another opportunity, and that is infrastructure to support. And without the infrastructure, hypergrowth is just a landmine waiting to be stepped on. So you've got to take care of that. And, you've got to have team growth or team gymnastics, whichever the case may be. You're either growing with your team or you're going through the exercise of trying to hold it together. So during that growth, how important is leadership visibility? CEO being a lighthouse or just blinking occasionally?
Well, it's a great point. You know, in the Hero Club, Jeffrey Hazlett and Trisha, they have really released a concept that is not rocket science, but it's so true. Branding, all branding is a promise delivered. So thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Trisha. It is true. In fact, I'm advising two companies here that couldn't be more different in terms of their direction and their substance and their existence. One is an accounting firm from Houston, Texas. Another is a tech startup from San Francisco. So being a leader, a differentiated leader, first has to start with, just asking the basic questions. Why are you here? What makes you different? Who are you serving? How are you serving them? I mean, it just boils down to that. And why does it matter to you? So I think that you have to keep your authenticity and develop your own playbook. Are there businesses or leaders that you want to emulate? What makes you different? What makes you stand out? There's only one of you in the world. I say everybody is uniquely formed. How can you package that? And sometimes we overthink it. Perfection's the enemy of the good. Doctor wrote me that prescription in 1992. And so I think of it like that. And it comes back to the infrastructure that you laid out. Having a base of understanding, surrounding yourself in areas of experts, whether it's fractional executives or third-party services that are trustworthy. And so I think that starts the plan. In closing, I don't think branding should be an exercise that takes, it's an evolving exercise, but sometimes what I've seen on the ground is people they know they need it, but they push it aside and other priorities come into the forefront. And I see companies thinking about, rejuvenating, recalibrating their branding in the first quarter of a calendar year. And then in the fourth quarter, some other things have come into a priority bucket. But I can't think of something more important than your story and your promise delivered.
Absolutely. Have you ever looked at your revenue model and said, well, I didn't expect that. Time for a plot twist, right? Reboot, Control, Alt, plus success. What do you do to hit that reset button? Sales now or survival later? Tell us about what do you do to hit that control alt
Yeah,
success.
well, Oprah says to listen to your inner voice, so I do that. So there's the exterior a voice happening, but you really got to trust your instincts. I trust my gut after all this time. Yeah, my gut and my internal gut. I trust that intently. So if I know that I'm tired and I have a lot of energy, I'm known for it. But however, I'm human. Everybody is. And so when I feel, I know all the signs of a potential burnout. I know all the signs of I'm saying yes to too many things. And so it's really important to sit yourself down. And what I've learned, and Tricia talks about this, the conditions of satisfaction versus balance in life, it's true because all that may require is a staycation. I'm in Austin now, just recently moved from DC, Austin, Texas, but it may require a 4-hour staycation at a local hotel to get myself together, to play that I'm going somewhere for 4 days and it actually is achievable in 4 hours. So I think that everything, the RE, the reboot, the recalibration, the reset button, sometimes they are more accessible than we might think.
Well, and we talked about those moments of getting away. And one of the things both of us shared in conversation is we enjoy driving fast cars. You said, let's go to Las Vegas. There's a place not too far from here where we can get out there and drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis and whatever, as long as we don't let our wives know how fast we're going so that they don't increase our insurance costs. But we love doing that. And you and I talked about if anything happens in Laguna Beach in the near future, going out to Fullerton Base and do some combat flying. Now, those are good things. They're crush it moments, but they also, they get us away from the time we're in there. Speaking of that, where is one of the areas in leadership that you weren't once thought that you were crushing it, only turned out to me it was a crushed it moment and took you down?
That's a good question there. I think when I started on Wall Street, I mean, think about this in context. I'm a kid from the farm that basically just earned my way up to that spot. But when I was there and working with JP Morgan, 23 Wall, 60 Wall in their Fifth Avenue office on some huge projects, the one thing that could have crushed me that didn't was to keep it all to myself and not ask for help, especially there. And I'll be honest, I looked left and right and not too many people looked like, I didn't see anybody that looked like me back in 1994. And so that could have been a moment that could have crushed me. But I decided that for once I was going to ask for help. And that really has made all the difference in the world because I ended up, thriving in Wall Street. In fact, my last assignment there was assessing risk and control policy abroad. And that turned out to be a SOP, a standard of excellence for JP Morgan. And so, I look at it like that, but literally that moment could have killed me. I got into a nervous breakdown at one point when I realized that I had not sent Christmas gifts to my family and it was Christmas Eve. So that nearly broke me. And, from a town of 3,000 or a couple thousand to being in New York City, but ultimately it didn't. And I think that defining moment, as Jeffrey and Tricia says, that defining moment set the course for every professional endeavor subsequent to that, including serving the U.S. small business ecosystem.
That's outstanding. And, one of the other subjects we got in the conversation about is current buzzword of AI, artificial intelligence. Business learning language has been around for 20 plus years, but they now have a nice title for it. So and you do a lot of work in the AI there now. So the question for you is it your best teammate or is it the best thing that you use for scheduling your haircut?
Well, I need a haircut, a little hair trim right now. But look, the way I see it, and I've had to nurture my own self through all the explanations of it, the discovery. I'm an accountant by trade. I'm also a compliance nerd, but I also knew that the path forward was going to have to involve AI and now AGI and other tangential items. And so I really, once again, I raised my hand and called some experts in the field that I was either had first or second degree connections, some of them in the Hero Club and the C-Suite network. And then I realized that processes have to drive the integration of AI, not in the reverse, because it will really bring out and accentuate your weaknesses and your vulnerabilities. But I've got to be aggressive. I've got to be at the forefront. The way I look at it, it's about empowerment, not replacement, including my own replacement. So one of the things that, exactly. So instead of my replacement, right, I'm doing several things in AI space. A life mentor, Guillermo Diaz, that I looked up to for over a decade, is now a collaborative partner. He's the former CIO of Cisco and now has launched in the promised land of his life, something, a company Conectado, related to agentic workflows and AI agents. So we're looking to really put a pioneering concept in the fractional space. I can't reveal too much about it right now, but it's going to be extraordinary. And so I've learned that the processes have to drive the AI and the human intelligence. I also have a book coming out possibly today or tomorrow. It's called Interview with AI Guidebook 3, How to Create Entrepreneurial Excellence, Kid Economics, and $50 trillion of ROI. Really, the author and the brain trust of that is an internationally award-winning economic developer, Kevin Johns. And I'm just lucky to be on the ride. But the whole concept there is also the prompting into the engine. Between his international economic development mind and having this vision to create childhood Einsteins from the time that I met him 10, 12 years ago, and the mind that I have for keeping grounded our view of technology, the multiple iterations, the technicalities that fed one question in particular was something that was a standard operating procedure for us. And it's the SOP that I use as well when I'm cultivating AI, whether with my retainer clients, whether it's with brainstorming about my financials and forecasts. So it comes down to that. Human intelligence has to drive AI excellence. And I do believe it's possible, but we've got to make sure that we're up to speed on the ethics of AI and all the, let's say, compliance implications of it.
Well, let me ask you, you're dealing strongly with AI here. As we both know, it's got to kind of develop into some BI, business intelligence. But let me ask you, how are you tripping over yourself with EI, emotional intelligence, to roll all of that together? We got into that discussion as well.
I love the conversation that we had about aggregating artificial intelligence, AI, with BI, business intelligence, and emotional intelligence, EI. I've always been an empathetic leader, but with standards of excellence, and always an unapologetic about wanting to win and playing by the rules. But it started with the heart. And I struggled. It was probably up to 15 years ago when I had the breakthrough that you can have a big heart and be value-based and have a lot of integrity and also want to win and be fiercely competitive. So those are the principles that I'm applying in this case, to your point. And I think that order of things will be ultimately successful and will provide a differentiated roadmap. I'm sure of it, because it's happening to me, I can tell you, in real life.
Well, and I'm looking forward to your next book that says EI. That's where I have to be before I can start with AI and BI to make it successful.
Let's do it.
There's a thought for a title. Let's do it. Do it together.
Let's do it together. I think we just planted some mustard seeds here for that book. I love it.
You bet. Well, your journey begins in bridges Wall Street, Main Street, and blue-collar DNA. How do you blend grit and grind with spreadsheets and boardrooms without losing your rhythm and keeping the attitude, the smile, what you have right in front of us today? How do you keep that together without it becoming, shall we say, a deadlift drop?
Well, thank you for that question. I mean, the first book that I wrote, and I'm up to 5 books, either sole author or contributing author in 1 year. But the first book I wrote was Energy. And, it's 21 uncomplicated and easy tips to start your day energized by 9 a.m. I wrote it, I had to write it in record time. So it became a coffee book because my mother's in rapidly declining health. We lost my father, who I thought we'd never lose. He was the most resourceful person that I'll ever know. He was like 89-0 in kid fights. And we lost him to COVID in the summer of 2020. My mom and dad went on the COVID floor at the same time. I thought he would definitely come out and she wouldn't, and the reverse happened. So when I resigned from the SBA, May 31st of 24, I said, one thing I can do is write a book and dedicate it to my mother, because that will be an official record point in the Library of Congress. And so that's what I did. These are revelations of ultimately what makes me who I am before anything else. So first, I'm grateful to God, and faith is my pillar. But of course, I have the education and everything else, the lived experience. But it comes down to 3 principles for me. It's energy, discipline, and grit. And that discipline has to win out. Rain or shine, I have to be in the gym at 5:15 a.m. and do that workout again and make sure that that's done. The reason I have 9 a.m. here is I'm an honorary colonel for the U.S. Army, and the Army had a campaign in the 80s. You probably all know it. We can do more by 9 a.m. than most people do all day. We can do it in the Army. And so that drives everything that I do. Rain or shine, I have a playbook and things are accomplished by 9 a.m. And then that makes me more apt to deal with life, with being CEO of the family now, not knowing what's going to come from the home, in terms of my two sisters taking care of my mother. There's a daily thing every single day. It's a roller coaster. But as long as I've done all this by 9 a.m. than most people do all day and keep that optimistic point of view grounded in faith, I'm going to be just fine.
Well, I find it somewhat humorous. I had breakfast this morning with the CEO of a company, and one of his comments were that he goes by the philosophy of I can get more done by 9 a.m. And that's the motto of the Army. And I said, you got it. Let's do it. And we had our breakfast and finished before 9 a.m. before we had this podcast. So it's kind of the scenario. Now, one question I have to ask, do you really do your workout routines and the things you do with energy posing to Beyonce tracks?
What was that? One more time?
Beyonce?
No, it's not Beyonce tracks. We're talking Journey. We're talking maybe a little Metallica and every now and again, some gospel music. So I'm formed of many things.
All right. Well, you just came out there. There's something out on the internet about you about posing to Beyonce tracks. So you better check that one out and get that one straightened out there. Well, some of the things we've talked about is on the serious note, what makes you laugh in a boardroom?
Ooh, I've managed over 100 boardrooms from, the likes of, in the realm of Stanford, been in some boardrooms, definitely as a head official, and then leading local and national nonprofits. What makes me laugh is egos in the boardroom. But I have what's called an internal voice. So you get all composure here. But as long as I acknowledge that laughter on the inside and say, acknowledge that while you have this here, then I'm all good. And it keeps me grounded. Sometimes by design, I'm the last person that speaks on the board. And I'm on probably like 5 boards between academic and tech startups, et cetera, nonprofit. And usually what I have to say is we came in talking about a particular constituency. Did we one time talk about how they're feeling? And most of the time that has been no. And so what makes me laugh is egos.
Well, I certainly can appreciate that. And, it's constantly something that in that boardroom, the ego controls most of the activity. So I thoroughly enjoy that response. Scaling with heart. Have you trademarked that yet?
No, but you should. And I'd sign up for it. I'd pay you royalties. I love that. I don't like it. I love it.
Well, how do you scale fast and kind without pulling a hamstring and keeping that heart in place? That's one of those things that all of us need to know and need to move, that keeps that ego out of the way, but you still get the job finished.
Yeah. I mean, you have to check yourself. We all know that this business is hard. And sometimes folks don't realize, especially in our circles, whether it's in the home front with our families, they might not understand or relate to what we're doing, right? But we also have to see it the other side. So the best way I can deliver that is through example. When I heard from my family a couple of weeks ago, like, we don't know where you are. We don't know what you're doing. And it didn't mean like, what are you doing professionally? Or, tell us more about that AI book or the Hero Club. They don't really get all that. What they were saying is, you're just calling us more as a check-in. Like it's a check mark, because I call my mother every night without fail. I try to call my sisters as well. But there's a difference between making that phone call and really being in that phone call, whether it's 1 minute or 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So you really have to just wake up. And if you feel that the people around you that you love the most, that there's any bit of a disconnect, that things are tarnished for whatever reason, that to me, that will help me scale with heart with the business, because it makes me bring that emotional intelligence, a concept, back into play. Now, we don't have to have a 4-day retreat and kumbaya, but it might just be a moment before a standing meeting with the team, before checking in with senior managers, to make sure that we're delivering that heart. What I have proposed with the 2 companies here, although they're so different, is let's start breaking bread. Let's throw out that first day of the agenda. Let's make sure that people connect with each other. If they feel valued, like we learned in the Hero Club, and including getting to know you and what you do, then that's going to be a win-win proposition. They're going to be more productive. And then we can talk about a unity of vision and create co-ownership while still looking to be profitable and scalable. But it all starts with that heart.
It absolutely does. Public service, boardrooms, book signings. When do you sleep?
Well, I'm low on sleep, but high on commitment. I think I'm losing my voice, but I'm not losing that heart. But the prescription that I just, gave here publicly, I need to take that prescription today. So I need to go out and enjoy that water. I haven't done that. I've been here 2.5 days, and I don't need to take anything with me. As long as I have the Lord with me, I'm good to go. But I really hope that I can just go out there and at least pause and be still for minimum 60 minutes, 1 hour.
We are blessed, and very similar to what you were suggesting, the Hero Club and C-Suite Network. We started off Wednesday night all breaking bread and maybe lifting a glass of wine in the process. But we got to know each other, which was really enjoyable, and just taking it from there. Then we went into the serious things, and then got to laugh about some of the things we thought were serious that maybe they really weren't. So, it comes down to Zig Ziglar was one of the teachers in Bible studies or Bible school at our church. And he used to say, the more you're grateful for what you have, the more you'll have to be grateful for. And that's you. You're an absolute example of that. And, we talked about in the meeting. In fact, is one of my directed comments to everybody in that meeting is we're all servant leaders. If we look at ourselves any other way, our ego has gotten in the way. So let's help each other. Let's listen to each other, etc. So with that, do you have any closing comments that you would like to have before we ask some questions? And like we talked about, we put this together at the last minute, so we don't have our normal audience, but this is going to go out to a lot of people, to all the members of C-Suite Network, and go out on TV broadcast. So people like Phil and Rebecca and Isabella, I'm going to ask them questions here in a few minutes. But any closing comments before I ask them, because this will be rebroadcast and hopefully to quite a few thousand people.
Well, I think my closing comments will be love what you do, and you always do what you love. And the other is perfection is the enemy of the good.
Absolutely. So, Phil, I'm going to ask you to unmute and see if you have any questions for Mark today. And we'll go from there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and thoughts. I really enjoy it. And I'm really here to see what I can do so I can continue to drive my servant leadership as well, too. So love being this with great people. I don't have any questions right at the moment. Adjusting everything that you said, I'm really right with you. Got some good points. I love the, perfection gets in our way, right? But progress is always something that we can be doing, and we're operating from the heart. So yeah, I love that.
Well, thanks.
All right, Rebecca, do you have any comments that you would like to put in? I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead. What were you saying, Mark?
I love that. Thank you that's a great way of stating progress as well. I say often that a whole lot of little goes a long way, meaning that sometimes that we want to take that leap, but sometimes it's the small steps that you're taking every day aggregated that will lead to the leap before that perceived leap happens the other ways, and sometimes never happens. So congratulations on that journey and that acknowledgement.
Rebecca, have you got any questions that you'd like to ask Mark here? You've known this character for a while.
Yeah, Mark, I absolutely love your energy. I think I've already told you that a time or two, but I would like to know what is something that you want to do, but you haven't been able to do that yet.
That is a good one. Well, I'll go 2 parts to that question because one was recently achieved. I always wanted to start an endowment at a business college for scholarships. And I thought that, I don't come from inherited wealth. That's what I'm trying to change, knowing that I'm serving the heart's going to be unequivocal, but now to go and pursue prosperity. That's going to help me be more philanthropic at the end of the day and really choose causes and write big checks for people that are actually doing things. But I got the opportunity of a lifetime to start an endowment and to raise funding, and it happened. And so I can't wait. My mother and 2 sisters are coming to visit, some of the few family members that we have left in New Braunfels, Texas, which is about 35 miles from Austin. It's also the home of Texas State University and the McCoy College of Business, where I proudly serve on the McCoy Family Foundation. And I cannot wait to show them that we're on the donor wall Mark L. Madrid and family scholarships. That's something in perpetuity. No one can take your education from you. There is no expiration to this. And it's really supporting what brought me here, education.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Hero Club meeting this last week, just for those and while we're waiting to see if we can get Mark back on here.
It would be my pleasure, Paul. Years ago, I've been running the Hero Club for 9 years. So years ago, I did an interview about the Hero Club, and the journalist ran me through all of their questions. And then the last question was, who would you like to spend a breakfast or a lunch with? And who would be the top of my list? And I said, without hesitation, any one of my hero leaders. And they said, no, I'm sorry, you must have misunderstood the question. Alive or dead, who would you like to spend a breakfast or a lunch with? And I said, I understood the question perfectly. And I'm telling you, any one of my hero leaders. And that's because every one of our hero leaders is somebody that I truly believe in terms of being a values-based business owner, investor, founder, CEO, who is pledged to give back, lead with integrity, transparency, give back to their communities, and share in their success. And so when I say how incredibly honored I am to work with our Hero Club leaders personally, to see their success, to see them connecting in an in-person event where, and Mark and Paul, I don't know that we've had this conversation specifically, but you will notice I never let you guys sit for longer than about an hour and a half, maximum, because I need the pace to be moving because, of course, as values-based CEOs, founders, investors, we're scaling our businesses. We're constantly putting out fires. We're constantly moving, and having something where you just sit still is not going to work. The other thing is everybody's getting to different locations, coordinating with each other. So that means all of these incredibly organic, real conversations are happening, armor off, because that's what we do. And the connections are made for a lifetime. And so last week was certainly no exception. I see we have Mark back. So Mark, I know we have more questions for you, but Paul asked me to share a little bit of last week. It was incredible.
Well, I'm sure Mark had to go over to one of the boardrooms so he could laugh in the boardroom just to say he did to come back, because that was one of the questions. I want to know what made him laugh in the boardrooms. Well, and along that, we've talked about his book, Energy, and somewhere out on the internet, there's something that he involves power posing to the Beyonce tracks. He says, "Oh, no, wait a minute. It's not Beyonce." It's like with others that he shared. So I'm going to turn this back, and I want to push it back over to Isabella for a minute and then finish coming back around to you, Tricia, for the call today. Isabella, do you have any questions for Mark?
Yes, actually, I do. Mark, I heard you talk about SOPs and the importance of standard operation procedures. What will be a short advice for entrepreneurs who don't have a team for documenting procedures or someone with a business intelligence department? What would you recommend for someone who's not very used to documenting and writing down everything, so they can start quick and have something on paper that can help them on the future when they want to scale?
That's a great question. I hope my Wi-Fi reception is okay. Apologies. I hope you can hear me. But this is where artificial intelligence and the tools on AI could definitely help. But bring somebody along who's been there, done that. Because there's a lot of templates out there. And frankly, there's a lot of universities that have entrepreneurship programs and community colleges. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But also, I think there needs to be education along the way. What I hear or what I witness firsthand sometimes is like, go drag that template from the internet, from AI, from the small business toolbox, but there isn't development along the way. So I think there needs to be training, and it doesn't have to be something prolonged, so that we can make sure that there's the why is administered. Why are we doing this SOP? Why is file infrastructure so important? Why is going into the cloud important potentially? Where have we been and where are we trying to go? And to put some value on that particular department, because I can't think of something more important than SOPs, file and continuous structure and architecture of documentation. It is hugely important. Sometimes it's put over there, like with PR and marketing, and it needs to be at the forefront. It's part of what Paul was calling the infrastructure. So I'll gladly take a whole hour on documentation, infrastructure, and SOPs.
Thank you, Mark.
All right,
Thank you.
Tricia, you're having a little bit of technical difficulty there in New York, wandering around the country. Are you where you can come back in? And right now, I can't see you nor hear you. So,
Can
Mark,
you hear
is there any other thoughts that you would like to share kind of in closing while we give Tricia an opportunity to get reconnected with us here?
Absolutely. Oh, there is, wow, what an honor to be speaking in Trisha's spot for a second, because it's somebody whom I admire daily. It's somebody who will answer the call. I don't know how she checks in with all of us and makes everything happen. And in support of that as well, I want to thank the entire team that supports the C-Suite Network and the Hero Club. It's just a breath of fresh air, and you're invaluable. I guess the last thing is, some people, they travel with the most important items in their purse or their purse, but you saw me travel with energy, right? All the time. And now the Leader's Playbook. So it's a book that was just launched in Dallas. It's already hit #1 in a couple of business categories. And I'm just so honored and thrilled and energized to be here with some fellow Hero Club members in this anthology. And what I know about this is it's digestible. It's something that you can take on the plane or with you and read a chapter. That's not going to be pages and pages and pages, but you'll get the accounts delivered in a very digestible, turnkey way. And I'm just honored to be part of it, the Leader's Playbook.